Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another one of our Saturday webinars. It is my pleasure and my honor to welcome you and thank you for taking the time for being here and giving us the opportunity to share this very valuable information with you. We are going to spend the next hour or so together, and we're going to go through some information that I think you're going to find very empowering, very inspiring, and perhaps even life transformative. So you may want to consider getting a pen and some paper. You may want to take some notes, some information. Some of it you may be familiar with, and some of it you may not be familiar with. And so I'm going to begin to share my screen right now, and we're going to get right into the presentation. Okay, so my name is David Homer, and I am a doctor of naturopathic medicine. I have been in clinical practice for 25 years. I retired from clinical practice about 5 years ago, and I am still very much involved in the health and wellness industry or arena. And I teach a concept called whole living, which is a whole process of inner transformation so that we can live our best life. Part of that involves our physical well-being or physical wellness. And so our topic this evening, which is an ongoing topic, just different aspects of it, is the future of health and healing. And we call it the future of health and healing because what we have been doing all along in the healthcare industry or in the healthcare system has not been serving us at the best. And so we're at a point in history now where technology has afforded us understanding and know-how that we can go beyond what we have known before. And so we're looking at an understanding of health and an understanding of healing that is beyond what we have been accustomed to so that we can live a more vibrant, a more healthy, a more disease-free life where we can have a health span without the fear of having to develop lifestyle diseases in our senior years or in our old years. And if we are in a place where we happen to have developed any of these chronic conditions, I want you to know that there is an answer, there are solutions, and there is a way out that is beyond what we have been accustomed to in terms of traditional or conventional healthcare model. And I want to begin with the World Health Organization's definition of health so we can have some context of understanding. And they said this was their definition from 1948, which I think needs updating to some degree. It says health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. I inserted spiritual there because it's not a state that is complete unless it looks at physical, mental, our spiritual, and social well-being. And it's important for us to understand that it's not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. And this is important because many people, we have the idea that if we don't feel sick, if there is the absence of symptoms, we are in a state of health. And it's not what it's not the absence of it, it's the presence of wholeness. It is the presence of physical, mental, spiritual, and social well-being. It is a complete state, meaning that everything is in order and nothing is missing regarding our physical, mental, spiritual well-being and how we interact with within the social framework of life in a way that's harmonious. That is truly the essence of what it is, and that's where we're coming from. And so we want to begin by understanding if you do not feel sick, it does not necessarily mean that you're in a state of health. how we gauge what health is a complete state of physical, mental, spiritual, and social well-being, all within a state of being harmonious. And so this is important because this is what we face today in the world. These statistics also come from the World Health Organization. They call it the global burden of disease, where 6 out of 10 adults have what we call lifestyle diseases. It accounts for 74% of the global deaths on our planet, and that is so staggering. The annual mortality rate for chronic lifestyle conditions is 50 million people a year. These are really staggering statistics. Chronic stress contributes to 90% of lifestyle and autoimmune conditions. Mental health disorders are among the leading cause of disability worldwide. And poor mental and physical health together accelerate aging and reduce lifespan. We're not only, if you go to the World Health Organization's website, you'll see that they have projected that these figures are going to escalate and increase and become worse in the years ahead. Now, my question is, we are advancing in technology, medical technology, in understanding and in know-how, yet why would we expect that they should continue to increase as opposed to decrease and get better? And I want to suggest that part of it lies in the fact that we look at health as what is the absence of and not what is the presence of. So I want us to get it right up front that disease, what we're facing, all of these statistics that we see, this is not the problem. This is just an outcome of the problem. And so what we want to do in understanding health and healing, we need to get to the root of what the problem is. But we need to get it up front that what we call disease, cancer, diabetes, heart disease, strokes, metabolic syndrome, whatever you may name it and call it, that is not the problem. Therefore, that should not be the focus. That's just the outcome that we face from living a particular way. It's interesting, we call it lifestyle diseases, but we don't consider our style of living when we address these symptoms that arise in our life. We focus on the symptoms that manifest in the body as though that is the problem. So I want to invite, this is a wake-up call to health, and it's about taking a step back and valuing the life that we live. You see, we are living longer, but without living healthier. And instead of thriving, we are surviving, leading to a lesser quality of life and unrealized potential. If we look around, if we examine ourselves and we look around and we look throughout the entire world, we'll see that we're living in a time where more and more people are really striving, surviving. We live in a survival mode. We're struggling, but we are meant to be thriving in a life of abundance, and we are well equipped for a life like this. Instead, every 3 out of 4 deaths worldwide, which is the 74%, is caused by lifestyle-related chronic disease. These are staggering statistics. 3 out of every 4 of us, we're going to leave this planet and expire after suffering with a lifestyle disease if it didn't take us out immediately. And so we want to step back, and to perceive and address disease as the problem is like trying to mop up water from a leaking pipe without fixing the pipe itself. So imagine you're mopping a floor that's wet from a leaking pipe. That's the approach that we have for disease. But disease is only the signal, it's not the source. And what we're going to be dealing with today is looking at the source and learning how to address the source, because disease, we understand, it's just the outcome. So we could mop all we want, we can dry the floor temporarily, but if we don't fix the pipe and there's always a leak, very quietly in the background, damage could be taking place under the surface unless we fix the leak. And so that's where we're going to be looking at today, is looking at the source. What we have going for us is this: healing is by design. And when I speak to some people about this, they say, many people agree because this is scientifically validated and medically validated and documented. But people ask the question, if this is true, why is it that there is this global pandemic of disease that's growing rampant, that's burdening every country across the globe? Why is it getting worse and projected to get worse if, in fact, there is healing that's built in to the human design? What medicine calls innate healing, it is the creative flow of life encoded into the human design. Then there is what is called spontaneous healing, which is when the harmony of our inner well-being fully awakens this potential. See, innate healing is the creative flow of life that's encoded into our very being. It is what, at conception in the womb, it is that power, that force that created, unfolded, and organized from one cell into two to four to eight, and unfolded this very intricately designed human form and it runs it today. We're here and it's running automatically. Trillions of functions happening all the time. This creative flow that's encoded into the human design is encoded into creation itself. This happens to everything that has life on the planet, whether it's an animal, whether it's a plant. You put a seed in the ground and that same process unfolds and it flourishes. And so that's why we grow from the inside out. We heal from the inside out. We get sick from the inside out. Everything thrives from the inside because of this constant flow. You cut your hair, it grows back. You clip your nails, it'll grow back. You scrape your skin or cut your hand, it will mend. It will form a scab, it will heal back. You break your bones, it will begin to mend all on its own. The very thing that built, organized, and sustains that life force that sustains our very body, that very force is a creative flow of life. And in that creative flow of life, healing is encoded into it. So whether it is a human being or whether it is a plant that loses its leaves during the winter and then they come back, it's always a continuous flow and it never stops. Spontaneous healing is a phenomenon in healthcare where people with incurable conditions or terminal conditions without any specific treatment spontaneously recover from it, and from what was once terminal or a life-threatening disease, they completely recover from it without any specific treatment. Now, all this just to say, healing by design is something that we need to begin to really digest this. We see this in medicine all the time in what they call the placebo effect. And so you can go online, you can go to the National Institutes of Health, their website, you can see the documented evidence that they have of experiments that they have done in medicine. One very popular one is taking 3 people with arthritic conditions that needed knee replacement surgery. 2 they gave the surgery to, and 1 they just made an incision, stitched it back, and they told the patient this surgery was successful, just like the other 2. And all 3 of them went through 1 year of physical therapy and treatment on it. And they were all told the wonderful things that they'll be able to do. They'll be able to dance again and all the great things because of the success of the surgery. 1 year later, when they were all assessed, they looked at the improvements of the 2 people that had the surgery, and the 1 person that didn't actually have the surgery, their body regenerated the cartilage in the knee without it having to be replaced. Now, this is very interesting in that just for us to know, and they say, well, that's the placebo effect. And we treat it as though it is something negative. But what it's saying is that there is a link between the human capacity to believe that our minds, which controls our body, has such great power that the placebo effect works. Spontaneous healing is a reality, a phenomenon in medicine, because innate healing is encoded into the human design. This is foundational, and this is very fundamental for us to accept and understand, because when we do really get a handle on this, we can become more confident in our ability to be able to overcome any illness. Now, we just have to understand how it works. Now, here's the beauty about this. We don't have to know how to turn this on. We don't need to know how to initiate it, mobilize it. It is continuously and forever flowing. It just becomes interrupted. This healing, this innate healing, is something that has been known throughout time. Going back as far as Hippocrates, the father of medicine, a Greek physician and philosopher, when he said, natural healing force within each of us is the greatest force in getting well. From way back then, throughout the millennia until today, proponents of understand this who work with this. So Joe Dispenza, a neuroscientist and an author, he said the body has the innate capacity to heal itself once we remove the interference, especially the interference of the mind. The moment you change your perception is the moment you rewrite the chemistry of your body. That's Dr. Bruce Lipton, a cellular biologist. And Deepak Chopra says the physical body is a field of energy, transformation, and intelligence. And when given the right condition, it knows how to return to balance and heal spontaneously. All of this just to say, ladies and gentlemen, is that within you and I, we are extraordinary beings. We have capacity way beyond what we can imagine and what we really know. And so being the extraordinary beings that we are, one of the qualities that we exist is the capacity to heal and regenerate by the very force and source of life that built and runs this body continuously. Now, healing may happen on different levels. And so it's not just a broken bone or a cut or a stumped toe that you find will just heal and mend on its own. At the cellular level, in every organ, every tissue, it's happening 24/7. It never stops. But it can get interrupted. And when we now have to understand what interrupts it, what interferes with this flow. Because if it flows continuously, there is no sickness, there is no disease. And when whatever goes out of order is brought back into order spontaneously, because that's the natural design. The thing is, let's get an understanding of how it all happens. Are we going to do that? So the doctor, that is the framework of our context of where we're going. Thomas Edison, an inventor who helped to create the light bulb, he said the doctor of the future will give no medicine, but will interest his patients in the care of the human frame, in diet, and in the cause and prevention of disease. Highlighting will give no medicine. So now when back in the 1800s, when he wrote this, when he said this, you mean that there was a time that's going to come where we could actually recover from illness without medicine? I want us to know that we are actually in that time. In many respects, we're in that time. And I'm going to talk about that. And the cause and the prevention of disease, and that's what we're going to focus on. We're going to focus on why it is that this thing happens, why it is that we are such amazing creatures, but yet we develop sickness and disease is so rampant and so out of hand that 3 out of every 4 of us are going to die from one of these lifestyle conditions. And if we understand how to prevent it and what's causing it, we can now take charge and take responsibility in how we go about engaging our experience of life on this planet. Now, Thomas Edison also said in creating the light bulb, something that also came out of his technology when he invented this light bulb. Imagine all people knew were open flames, and he came up with this, what you can call a technology of that time, and it changed the world, and we're all using these light bulbs today. But here's the thing, although it was a transformative shift, it was first perceived by the culture of the day as just another option for lighting up spaces. They did not perceive it as being something that was a complete paradigm shift. It took 50 to 60 years for the new paradigm to be culturally accepted. It took more than a generation before it became fully adopted as this is something that is transformative and something new. And so I'm bringing this up because we are in a time where technology can help us to harness our well-being in such a way. And I'm going to show you, and I'm going to talk to you about a technology that is so simple. It is so amazing. And it works directly with our innate intelligence of healing. It harnesses the body's own innate potential to heal. It has no medicine. It has no substances. It has no ingredients. There is no equipment that's needed. It doesn't emit any type of frequencies, but it harnesses our body's innate intelligence so that it can be released to do what it naturally does. That is amazing technology. And I'm going to talk about the simplicity of that and how, even though it is nothing like what currently exists in healthcare, we are likely to begin to think of it in the same way that it's just another option to what is available. I want us to open our minds to the understanding that it is nothing like what is available, because what is available today does not work with, does not integrate with, does not harness the innate capacity of our body to heal and regenerate. That innate intelligence, that innate wisdom of the body, our approach today does not even tap that. What we're going to talk about taps into that. It is so natural and it is so effective that we need the help of it to be able to do it. I know we're going to understand why. So let me just use this as a model to bring that understanding of how, since we are already self-healing, extraordinary beings, why we still, most of us will still die of a lifestyle disease. First of all, let us get in our minds that this model here that you see on the screen is a dissection of our lives, of our beingness. We are three-dimensional beings, but we are all embodied in this physical structure as one seamless being. I dissect it into body, soul, spirit, soul being the faculties of mind, heart, and will. I dissect it into these three to help us to understand, but the understanding must be that this is not three separate things. This is one thing that has three aspects of activity. It's all embodied in our body. So, but what gives the body life, what animates it and makes it move, what orchestrates all of its physiological and psychological functions that we could experience life comes from what we call spirit. That is the source. That is what unfolded and created the very structure in the womb to what it is today. And that's what continues to run every system. We have trillions of things happening right now in the body. And it's happening without our awareness, it's happening automatically, and it's coming and it's driven and run from the very source we can call spirit. That is the life source. And when that source streams through our conscious awareness through mind, which facilitates the flow into body, when it's one free seamless flow, that's the state of wholeness. That's the state of health. That's how we're meant to live. That's a state of complete peace. That's a state that we don't know what stress is at all. We do not know worry, anxiety. We just flow. But this is a completely different paradigm of living, because how we perceive life when we look through this lens of living is a completely different world of reality. That's another conversation, and that's part of our workshops. But, and when we look at the physical body, when we think about diet, nutrition, exercise, etc., consider this as aspects of mopping the floor as taking care of the leaks. Now, we can, diet, nutrition, absolutely essential. We must have it. It's a very critical component of it. But this is where we have looked at to try and fix our problems. We look externally because of how we've been conditioned. And even though we know that the mind has governance over the body, we don't pay a whole lot of in medicine. We separate the two. We don't give a lot of attention to the aspect of mind, and we don't understand how significantly powerful this is in how the body works. Even though placebo effects and spontaneous healing tells us that the mind and body and the inseparable nature of them is incredibly powerful when it comes to healing sickness. But here's what happens, not to belabor this, is that instead of this creative flow of life, which flows from invisible into visible, from inner into outer, from the formless into form, that's the natural creative order of life. For it's in the cosmos, it's in nature, and it happens within our body. What happens is that we come into this world and we are conditioned to see life from a completely different paradigm. We see life from the outside in. And we now, instead of identifying with ourselves or our sense of identity being rooted in our essential spiritual essence or nature, we see and identify with self as a physical being, not as a spiritual being. Even though we may acknowledge and accept that we are spiritual beings, we have no conceptual understanding of what that is and what that means to our execution of life. And so our identity, we have been conditioned to have our identity rooted in our physical nature. And so we look to the external reality of life for where we take value. So our sense of well-being generally is determined by the outer circumstances of life. So whether life is great when it's not, if life is stressful or not, if life is beautiful or not, it depends on what's happening all around us, because we are acculturated to look to the outer reality for our truth and our value. But because that is contrary to, we have inverted the flow. To live from the outside in, and this is the general principle, the details and the dynamics of this are all laid out in our workshops, so we won't get into that. But when we invert the flow of life and reality and truth comes from the outside in, it is like going against the natural flow of a river where you create resistance. It creates an inner conflict between what we know of truth on the inside and how we live on the outside. And it's not the same, and we'll get to understand that. This creates spiritual obscurity because it blocks our essential nature of spirit from flowing freely through, because it meets a resistance by inverting the flow. And so even though we may agree that we are spiritual beings, we don't understand that, because our spiritual identity, the true essence of our nature, is really obscured in the background. It creates this spiritual resistance. That is what we call stress. And stress leads to disease. Now, so once we understand this, the general framework is that, what you take from this is that there's a natural creative order of life that started in the womb and it continues until the day we expire. This creative order, it flows continuously, it's infinite, it never stops. It runs the body, it heals the body, it sustains the body, it keeps it in homeostasis and balance all the time. When that is not happening, it is being interrupted, it is being disrupted. Stress is the disruptor of this flow, because we have inverted the quality or the attributes or the reality that we take from outer in inverting it creates a split, a conflict. You see, and that conflict comes between mind and heart. In other words, the conflict is in our soul because what we know internally and how we live externally, our heart and mind, the heart connected to the spirit, the mind connected to the external world, there is a conflict between the two. This discord between our inner reality and our outer expressions, it arises because our values don't come from our inner nature of truth and heart. It comes from what the world has conditioned us to accept as being true. But when the outer world is prioritized, when that becomes our reality, and for most of us on this planet, it's the only reality we know. But this inner world, it is so foreign to us, and it's a completely different paradigm that we have to learn how to tap back into that. But this is where the key is. What once our priority is on the external reality of how we've been taught to see and interact with the world and what we believe, our spiritual potential, which is where our true essence of healing lies, that will always be resisted. Just like going against the flow, you will feel that resistance. And how it shows up in what we call stress, which is that inner conflict. And this is what we need to understand. This is where we have to focus our attention because spirit and body, which are two aspects of one thing, they're not two different things. It's one thing that has two natures in how it functions on this earth. But what bridges it is this thing called mind or soul. This is the bridge. And this is where the conflict happens. This is where instead of spirit conditioning the soul, which reflects in the body conditions the mind, corrupts the heart, and it blocks this flow from coming out. That's essentially what's happening. And so stress, let's look at that because according to the authorities, the World Health Organization and other authorities, between 60 to 80% of people in modern societies live in a chronic or recurrent state of stress. Now, there are other there are other statistics that in neuroscience and other places that show that the majority of a modern society, and some of the other statistics says 70 to 75% of us live in a constant state of stress. It is so constant and so common, it becomes our norm, and we don't even recognize that we are in a state of stress all the time, except times where it amps up. Other than that, we could be sitting down watching TV and still be in a state of stress and inner tension and be completely unaware of it. Up to 90% of doctor visits are stress related. Stress is the basic cause of 75 to 90% of all human illness and disease. Over 90% of disease is caused by stress, thoughts, and beliefs. These are statistics coming from the authority, and we've all heard it that stress is a killer, and stress is the number one cause of disease. The medical authority says that 90% of autoimmune and lifestyle diseases are stress related, but we don't understand that. We don't even understand what stress is most of the time, because if it is, we want to live disease-free, then we need to get a handle on this thing that we call stress. But what we have also been taught what stress is, again, because of the inverted flow of the order of life coming from the outside in, we think that stress is on the outside. We look for stress on, and so it's a stressful world. It's a stressful job. Those people stress me out. And so stress is always external. But stress is really not external. Stress is also internal. Stress is an internal conflict. And I'm going to break this down for us to get an understanding. And if you get anything this evening, what we're going to do in between this and the next slide is get that. If you get nothing else, get that, because this is the key. Stress is the conflict that arises when our soul, heart, and mind is out of alignment with our true essence of being. Just take note of that. It is the emotional pressure or that spiritual dissonance we feel from being designed to live one way, but socially conditioned to live another. It stems from the insecurity of a cultural identity where actions betray the core values to conform to social norms. Because we all want to be accepted, we all want to fit in, we want to be admired, we want to be, you know, and a lot of times we live in ways that we want that validation, again, because we place value externally and we don't feel it within ourselves. So whether the world is going good or not, or whether we're accepted or not, or whether people like us or not, or whether, regardless of what's happening externally, we should be living and feeling great just when we wake up in the morning, and we don't need external realities for us to feel abundant, for us to feel accepted, for us to feel worthy, for us to feel like kings and queens on this earth. We need to learn how to honor ourselves in a very new way. But this inner conflict shows up this way. It is physical and mental dissonance. Psychology calls it cognitive dissonance. And this is just some of the hundreds of ways it expresses itself. But I want you to be able to see and feel and sense that inner conflict between our mind and heart, about our physical and mental natures. It is experiencing life one way and pretending it's another. It's the conflict between what we desire and what we believe is possible. These are things we run into every day. It's saying we value the truth, yet not be honest about how we really feel. Happens in our conversations all the time. It's when our sense of well-being is defined by outer circumstances. I'll feel good when these circumstances change. No, that's backwards. It's having dreams of achievements, but feeling inadequate to pursue. It's wanting a healthy life, but neglecting to cultivate healthy habits. It's a conflict that we have in our own selves. It's treating others in ways that we would not want to be treated. It is thinking or feeling one thing, but yet saying or doing another. It is the instability and uncertainty of a double-minded thinking or double-minded living. These are just some aspects that gives the sense that this inner conflict, which we all have to whatever degree, this is what causes stress. Because we look through this lens and we look into a world and we interpret and we interact based on this inner state that we have. So it is not the circumstances of life that causes stress. We have to understand it's not the attitudes, it's not the boss, it's not the finances, it's not the bills, it's not the traffic. These are not stressful. This is just life happening. How we perceive and respond to these circumstances based on our internal framework of beliefs, values, and emotions and expectations, this is what the response based on this is what we call stress. And we're trying to run away from stress. And now we're treating stress like it is a disease now, where you have to control stress and manage stress. But stress it contributes to the whole disease model, but it's coming from inside, not from outside. You run away and you go to some nice paradise beach somewhere, and while you're there, you are away from all the hustle and bustle, but you could be lying there still fearful, still anxious, still studying what you have to go back to when your holiday is over, and you're still stressed. It's all internal. And we have to understand that. So we don't see life as it is. Nobody does. We see life as we are. Our perception of life, which determines 100% how we respond to life, is filtered through the lens of our inner state. And this is important. That's why if you get anything, just get this, because this is fundamental. When our thoughts, emotions, and actions radiate a single frequency, when there is no difference between what we think, what we say, how we feel, what we do, when it's all one and the same, there's a state of peace. This is freedom. This is where we become free from anxiety, free from pressures, free from doing or not doing because we are concerned about the opinions and thoughts of others, where our life is hijacked Our mind is hijacked because of external realities, and we don't live really, really free. But this is where the end of stress is, and this is where the end of dis-ease. This internal fracture is what tears the unity of our being apart, because this is how we've been conditioned to live, how we've been conditioned to see, perceive reality in the world. But our true essence of being, which is quite the opposite to this, it needs to flow from the inside out. When that happens, it's a completely different perspective, a different response to life. How we experience life. And this is bringing it home to understand how this way of thinking, living, and being translates into disease. Experience is what enriches life. If we had no experience, we will just be a zombie. But this experience, whether it is good or bad, peaceful or stressful, it is all navigated by the central nervous system. And I'm bringing it home for us now to get a handle on it. The central nervous system encompasses the brain, which is encoded by the DNA of how all the body is supposed to function, and the entire nervous system, which communicates with every cell, organ, and tissue in the body. So the central nervous system is the bridge between what comes from mind to body. The very programming, you can call it a pre-installed program that comes from our spiritual essence, which formed everything and streams it right into the body. It is transposed from the unseen into the seen via the mind. But to go from invisible into visible, or to go from energetic into influencing matter, that transposing of life force into physical matter happens with the central nervous system. That's how life flows from the inside out, from spirit into body, sustaining it, maintaining it, that creative order and that flow. It is facilitated by the central nervous system. I just wanted to just drive that because this is really important. The central nervous system, how we experience life, is really broken down into, to make it simple to understand, two sections. The central nervous extends into what we call the autonomic nervous system. It extends into that, autonomic meaning that everything runs automatically. It runs according to coding. It runs according to this infinite flow of life that built it, that runs it, that sustains it. It all happens through the autonomic nervous system. That is divided into two branches. One branch deals with stress, the other one deals with healing and repair. One deals with out of balance, one deals with complete balance. One deals with a fragmented way of thinking, living, and being, and the other one deals with when there's wholeness, harmony, and balance. The autonomic nervous system breaks down into this. Now, this is just taking a very complex thing and simplifying it. But when this sympathetic nervous system, which is our fight-flight response, when that is activated by chronic stress, it leads to every lifestyle and autoimmune disease that medicine knows today. It leads to that. It's just different pathways it may take with different people internally based on our stresses of life, our nutritional status, etc., our genetics, etc. So, but it all leads to this. So, chronic stress, it promotes oxidation and systemic inflammation, which are the two roots that causes most lifestyle diseases, gut dysfunction, DNA damage, premature aging, stress. This is what the adage that people have, stress is a killer. Indeed, stress is. But what is stress? Stress is not what's happening around you. Stress is happening with how our style of living that projects out into the reality of our external world, and how that is being navigated by our minds and our hearts, which is how we've been taught, what we believe, our values. And so, yes, It requires an internal change. This is why transformation is always by the renewing of the mind. This is where it starts. But this side, the sympathetic nervous system, this branch of it deals with the stress response. This is what, based on scientific and neuroscience and all the medical literature, most people, 60 to 80% of us, live with this system always in overdrive. We live stress. We're always, but our body is always fighting against it. Because why? There's a constant natural flow of a creative order. It never stops, but it's always being resisted. That is called symptoms. When that natural flow is being resisted by chronic stress, it creates something we call symptoms that eventually lead to disease. The symptoms is the resistance of going against the flow. That's what it really is. The other arm of it is called the parasympathetic nervous system, and this deals with healing and recovery. When this system is activated, when there is mind-body balance and coherence, when there's inner peace, when our thoughts, words, and actions are governed by one frequency of truth, it restores the natural homeostasis because you're restoring the natural flow of the creative order. Immune system becomes optimal. Cellular repair, the body's biological systems begin to coordinate and begin to come synchronized. The body starts to heal and repair. This is people that, and if you are not familiar with it, it's worth looking up. People that go through spontaneous healing, who recover from terminal and life-threatening conditions without any specific treatment. This is what happened. This parasympathetic nervous system becomes dominant. And when it becomes dominant, one thing happens. It begins to repair. This is what kicks in with the placebo effect. And all this is saying is that there's such a profound power between what we believe and how our body functions. So these are the two systems we are working with. One is working for us, one is working against us, and it all depends on our state, our inner state of being. Now, the function of the central nervous system is measured by brainwaves activity, which is how we can know when a person is parasympathetic dominant or sympathetic dominant in the way. So we measure brain waves. So when our inner state is influenced by negative thoughts and emotions, brainwave activity reflects that distress response. Same thing when our inner state is one of homeostasis and order and balance, positive thoughts and emotions. Brainwave activity activates the parasympathetic system. Negative thoughts activates the sympathetic nervous system. And we can all map this through brainwave activity. So understand that disease don't happen to us because it doesn't come from outside. Disease happens through us. So when I said that to someone recently, they said, how is it that it don't come from outside? It doesn't. It all comes from inside. What about organisms that cause disease? They develop right inside our bodies. Create the right condition, they'll develop right inside your body. Pretty much like if you take a container and put any type of food in it, airtight seal the container and put it in your fridge, pull the plug of the fridge out, the fridge has an airtight seal, come back in a month and look at it, that food is covered with organisms, molds, and funguses that's eating at it. Take a bag of rice and store it in a cupboard with the wrong temperature and come back and look at it in a couple of months and you'll see weevils in it, no holes in the bag. It came right out of the rice. Create the right conditions, it will morph out of its own self. Clean a chicken and take the chicken skin and put it in an airtight container and leave it there. Come back and look at it in a couple of weeks and there are maggots all in there ready to come out. They came right out of the skin. Create the right conditions and you will create it right within yourself. So it doesn't happen to us, it happens through us. See, the condition of the body is 100% determined by this very spiritual life that animates and sustains it. When that flows freely through, there's spontaneous healing, there's health, there's wholeness, there's order, there's balance, there's purity, there's cleanliness, everything is in order. Invert that flow or hinder it, resist it, disrupt it, and then we start to now create a cascade thing. And what's doing that? What we call stress. Is stress external? No. Stress is internal. It's a fracture that tears the unity of our being apart by how we think, how we feel, how we speak, how we act. It's all fragmented. What we need to, if we stop for a minute and start to observe ourselves daily, we would see that for a very large part of our lives, what we think is not always what we're going to say. And how we feel is not always what we're going to express or what we're going to do. We'll find that, just like I showed a couple of slides back, there's this inner conflict that we have in ourselves, and it's from small to great. And so we just have to understand that we now can take control. We are in charge of this. So to unlock the natural flow of healing, we have to harmonize thoughts, emotions, and actions to be one pure frequency. What we think, feel, say, and do is one and the same. This activates the parasympathetic system because it brings that balance, homeostasis, and harmony back. And that unlocks. It reveals the body's innate healing that's always so. It removes the resistance. It removes the disruption because there's no more stress. And it restores that natural harmony between mind and body so the essence of spirit just flows through. Innate healing. Innate healing is just part of it's encoded into our design. We don't have to initiate healing. We don't have to know how to make healing happen. We have to remove the disruption. We have to remove the resistance, and it's internal, it's not external. And because we haven't quite understood that, people who truly want to get their health in order, they're trying a lot of external things. We can change our diet. We get into exercise. We take our nutrition. We make sure we get enough rest. We put all the physical factors together, and that is great because that helps and that is necessary as all part of the process. But if we don't fix the leak, we're just going to it's all going to be mopping the floor and keeping it drying temporarily, and it will just take longer because you're observing healthy physical habits. So it may take longer, but if you don't get the leak, eventually it'll still create problems down the road. We're talking about how to fix the pipe and stop the leak so that as you mop, you can look at now health span, longevity, a long, healthy life without having to worry about disease. Now, is this a tall order? It's a very tall order. How can we harmonize our thoughts? How can we, if we get our thoughts and emotions and actions to be one pure frequency, if we came into that state of being and we measured our brainwave activity, we would have harmonious, synchronized brainwave activity. When it's not, we have erratic brainwave activity, which is how we measure our state of being by the activity of the brain, which is controlling everything in the body. How could we do that? We could employ things like meditation and metacognitive exercises and mindfulness practices and different things that we can do, because when we do that, we're actually harmonizing our brainwave activity and we're beginning to tap into our parasympathetic system the more we engage in those type of habits. Now, how many of us are going to do that? Most of us, we are so caught up in trying to make life work. We don't take the time to do these types of things. And so we're on a treadmill. We're on a hamster wheel, just going around, and we're trying to make life work. But what if there was a way that we can bring our brain wave activity, which is what signals the central nervous system, what if we can bring that into harmony and balance, activate the system? What would happen? The body will just start to heal, right? Because we have now removed the hindrance, released the flow, and the body naturally does what it's designed to do. What's built into it just starts to work, if we can do that. Because to do it through lifestyle practices is very difficult. And this is where the technology I'm going to tell you about harnesses this inner capacity that we have so that we can fast track it, so that we can now go about cultivating our inner well-being without feeling like we're going upstream or that we're doing it going uphill. It's an easier process to do that. So understand what I'm saying. This is a completely different approach to healthcare and self-care, a completely different approach. So it is not like what is currently available. There's nothing like it. It was invented by this man. He's called Jay Dhaliwal, the CEO and founder of a wellness tech company called the Super Patch Company. An amazing technology. He did not set out to create a technology that will transform the world, because what he has developed is so transformative. Because if you can imagine, and you hear what I'm saying, it is a technology that harnesses that inner well-being. It harnesses that innate intelligence that runs and heals and repairs the body. It taps into that without using medicine, drugs, substances, frequencies of any type, and no equipment. It taps into that just so that we can now harness our well-being and cultivate now a better life. This is beyond the health of the body. This is overall well-being that we were talking about. And he tapped into this because he was looking for a solution for his mother, who suffered with multiple sclerosis and was given a period of time to live because of the continuous degeneration. There is no medical cure for it. And taking $25 million of his own money and 15 years of working with the most brilliant minds in neuroscience and medical research, he discovered, as a software engineer, becoming very successful through coding for some of the largest companies in the world. He looked at how the brain encodes, and after 15 years of working with brilliant minds, he found out that there is a way that we can harness mind and body by using what is naturally built in to the system without using any drugs at all. Because he didn't like the fact that drugs just created secondary problems in the body, what we call side effects. And he came up with a simple technology. Now, I'm going to show you a 1.5 minute video of an experiment that he's doing, real-time experiment using an EEG headset, which is measuring brainwave activity, to show you how the simplicity of this technology is, but how potent it is. And then I'm going to just explain that to you, run through what he's done, and then at the end, you'll see what it is you have available to you. It's called vibrotactile trigger technology, and it's the only technology in the world that uses the neural haptic system of our body, as he'll explain. So let's just watch this 1.5 minute video.
Hi everyone, I'm Jay Dhaliwal. I'm the CEO and founder of Vox Life and the creator of Vox Life HPT. Today, I want to talk to you about our Harmony Neuro Patch. And what this product does is actually stimulates receptors on our skin, sending a neurosignal to our brain to help it reach homeostasis. This is the only product in the world that relies on the neurohaptic system that every single one of us has to optimize our neurology and optimize our health. Today, with the help of Dr. Mark DeBrincat, our VP of Clinical Strategy, we're going to be using an FDA-cleared 19-channel EEG headset, as well as FDA-cleared software to visualize, record, and show the impact that our technology has on our neurology and our brains to help it reach optimal performance. What we want to show today is how the Harmony Neuro Patch helps that dysregulated yellow, blue, and red colors in the brain maps transform into that healthy green homeostasis neurology that is the foundation of health and wellness. So what we're looking at right now is a neurological QEEG output of Mike's limbic system. The 19 channels are reading over 60,000 brainwaves a second and generating an output of neurofunction and brainwaves. What we want to see now is where that suboptimal red and yellow colors are. We want to see them turning as much as possible to a healthy green with the application of our HPT patch. So we've applied the patch now to Mike's arm, and within 10 seconds, you're seeing that predominant yellow and red become predominantly green. Just for clarification, ladies and gentlemen, there's nothing in the world that has this output at this rate of speed without drugs, without chemicals, without electricity. That's the power of Vox HPT. So when we see a healthy green neurology, what we're looking at is a brain and a mind in homeostasis. It is operating in its optimal function. And this is so important. And this is why it's so important. So VoxLife HPT, as we demonstrated with our NeuroPatch, helps the central nervous system reach homeostasis in our neurology. And the reason this is so important for overall wellness and health is that neurology is the top of the pyramid of our physiological health and wellness paradigm. First is neurology at the very top, then there's chemistry, then there's biology, then there's physics and mechanics. Neurology will have an impact all the way through our entire physiology. Healthy neurology, healthy body, better wellness.
So that demonstration that he did with the Liberty Patch, measuring brainwave activity, we understand that brainwave activity reflects the activity of the mind, or by extension, our state of being is all reflected in brainwave activity. Different measurements and different states of being, different activities of brain waves. That's pretty much known by a lot of people. But the link between brain waves and the central nervous system is what we want to understand, is that brainwave activity, it influences the autonomic nervous system, because the brainwave is a reflection of our inner state, or our state of mind, or our state of being. So based on the brainwave activity, will determine if it is going to signal the sympathetic or the stress response, or the parasympathetic, which is the healing and repair. And so depending on the nature of the frequency will determine which one of the systems of our autonomic nervous system, which branch of it is going to be activated. This is really important. And so what the Liberty Patch that was just demonstrated, when he says it brings the brain into homeostasis, it's bringing the hemispheres of the brain into more coherent and orderly functioning. What that essentially means is that the static or the disruption in contrary frequencies of negative emotions and negative thoughts, etc., that is disrupting the free flow, because the free flow of energy from inner to outer, from spirit to body, that free flow of creative energy, that creative flow, it becomes resisted by stress, which is negative thoughts, negative emotions, traumas, and the things that we have embedded in our subconscious mind, that what the patches are doing is removing the resistance that the flow becomes free again. That's absolutely amazing. Why? By just bringing more order and function to brain activity, which is measured by these EEG devices. And so it's based on Nobel Prize science, and I'm not going to get into the details of that, but basically, it's the Nobel Prize research on it just says that there are receptors in our skin, embedded in our skin. Anything that touches our skin will send an electrical signal to the brain. Electrical because that's the language of the central nervous system. So whether it is a fly lands on you, or you feel the heat of the sun, or the blowing of the wind on your skin, anything that touches our skin sends a signal to our brain so that we will know what is going on in our environment all the time. What they've discovered is that there are these specific channels in the skin, embedded in our skin, that when certain patterns come onto the skin, it's like Braille, understanding how Braille is. Braille, what blind persons use to read, these are dots that are arranged in what they call tactile patterns. Each pattern carries information as to whether it is a word, a symbol, a number, a letter, or what. When they touch it, these ion channels in the skin sends a signal to the brain, informing the brain of what it is, if it's a word, a number, etc. Superpatch, through the 15 years of research and development, using understanding that skin, how the skin speaks to the brain through tactile, through touch, they have been able to develop a series of patches that all it has embedded in it is a tactile pattern. No drugs, no medicines, no ingredients. When this pattern touches the skin, it sends a signal to the brain, just like anything that would touch the skin. But based on the pattern, it then synchronizes a particular pathway in the brain so that there'll be a free flow of healing response, which is natural. The patch is not healing the body or removing symptoms. The patch is removing the resistance. It is synchronizing and bringing into harmony the brainwave activity so that the natural flow that is built in naturally does what it's supposed to do. Now, that's taking a complex technology and trying to simplify it, but it's as simple as it is. This is so amazing to me, that because what it's doing is harnessing what already exists. It's just synchronizing it and making it orderly so that it can then do its job. The body just does its job naturally. 15 years of research and development, and it's now peer-reviewed, published science in some of the prestigious journals around the world. This is now bona fide science that's now attracting attention from some of the greatest minds around the world. In fact, the Superpatch company has been invited to present its technology to some of these global symposiums where the greatest of the minds come together to look at the future of health and healing. And no one has ever seen a technology that has this profound impact, not just physically, but mentally as well, without introducing any substances into your body. What am I saying? I'm saying that what naturally exists in the extraordinary makeup of who we are as spiritual beings, as human beings, our extraordinary makeup, we are complete in ourselves, but we have some distortions, we have some static, we have some resistance, we have some things that's going against us because of how we've been conditioned to live. But while we try to cultivate and work on that, what makes it easy is that we can streamline our brainwave activity, bring it into balance. The result is our body just starts to work better and our minds start to work better. Now that is very transformative. And so we're unlocking this potential we have within. So when the mind and body are harmonized through brainwave synchronization, the mind becomes more orderly and biological systems become more coordinated. Why? Because there's the free flow of that creative order. This establishes homeostasis and optimizes the body's self-healing capacity. Superpatch has found so far, they have discovered in their 15 years of research and development 13 different ways to synchronize brainwave activity related to specific biological functions. And they are working on several others right now as we speak. They have some that's actually mind-blowing, that's going to deal with other aspects that are beyond where the regenerative medicine is going right now. It's like years ahead of the curve. It's absolutely amazing what the company is doing. But you were talking about mind-body solutions that are so simple, something that has not existed and is ushering a brand new era of health and wellness and self-care for that matter. So it enhances physical and mental well-being, and it has all the research, it's clinically proven, it's FDA registered, it addresses the most common needs in healthcare by unlocking the potential that resides within us already by just harmonizing the brainwave activity, which is interrupted by our state of being. It's just reorganizing it. That's beautiful. They're very effective. So as soon as a patch touches your skin, it instantly starts synchronizing brainwave activity. The response that you will feel in your body will vary from one person to the other because we all have different pre-existing imbalances, different nutritional deficiencies, etc., different states of being that might be interrupting it, but they start working right away. We have no worries of contraindications if you're on medications of any type, any interactions. That doesn't happen because there's zero ingredients involved. There's no allergic reactions because there's nothing in it that it puts into your body. These are not transdermal patches like many of the patches that are on the market. So they're completely safe. They're easy to use, even for children and the elderly. And they're accessibly priced that people can actually tap into this and begin to see life-changing results. So mind-body harmony, which is the key to the homeostasis and the balance that unlocks that innate potential, this is what SuperPatch does. When I came across this, with the work that I'm doing, I saw this as a perfect marriage and a perfect match to the work that I'm doing with people in terms of their inner well-being. This is the bridge of how we can cultivate our inner well-being and reorder the flow of life from the inside out without feeling that we're having to fight upstream to get it done, because this makes it so much easier and more accessible just by harmonizing and synchronizing our brainwave activity to be more harmonious and more aligned with mind-body balance. Just the same way as if we were to engage in mindfulness practices, which I would strongly suggest we do it. It just becomes easier now. So each of these patches, as it synchronizes your brainwave activity and removes the resistance, the influence and the impact that it has physiologically, you'll see some of the indications. The one that was demonstrated, improved balance and stability by more than 33%, and it happens within a matter of seconds. That's how fast these things can work. 100% of people that if you do a balance and stability test with this patch, 100% of the time, people will see a 33% increase in strength, stability, and balance within a matter of seconds. The range of motion improves. And it helps our bodies in many ways. It helps to support that longevity. One of the things that affect most people, and even some people are not aware of it, is getting REM sleep. The REM patch, getting to that level of sleep that is restorative, regenerative, where the body does its repairing, including repairing the brain. A lot of us don't get that quality of sleep. You stick on the patch, you fall asleep 50% faster, you have longer sleep, you have deeper sleep, you have restorative sleep. The peace patch is one of my favorites. We are always living in a state of stress. Anxiety, it reduces stress and anxiety by 33% in a matter of moments. It balances the autonomic nervous system. What does that mean? It's helping to coordinate biological systems. It enhances mental health factors by 24%. And this is without putting anything inside your body. The Defend patch supports a healthy immune system. And I'll tell you, in my 25 years of clinical practice and seeing immune modulators and immune enhancers, I've never come across anything that upregulates immune response faster than this and as much as this does. This is incredible and when you think that it's just harmonizing brainwave activity, synchronizing mind and body, so it naturally does what it just tells us how incredible and how extraordinary we are as human beings. When it comes to pain, people are living with pain and the quality of life significantly reduced because you get a 72 reduction in pain. Most people get that within a matter of 20 minutes without putting any chemicals or drugs into your body. Some people, it happens within a matter of seconds. Some people minutes, some people days, all depends on things. But people prefer the Freedom Super Patch over over-the-counter medicines because it's safe and it's very effective. People who are into sports, athletic performance, you're into workout, you want to see more power, increase in your peak force, your speed, your strength. You don't have to be using it like a supplement for time to build up in your system. You go to the track, you go into the gym, you put on the patch, and in a matter of moments, you're going to instantly see the amount of strength, and you'll see how it's increased, and it increases very quickly. That's how fast these patches work. You don't want to get into these energy drinks that are toxic to your body, toxic to your liver, toxic to your brain. These and the energy drinks, a lot of people are into the boost patch. This is more than 12 hours, 24 hours of increased sustained energy, enhanced alertness. You don't have the crashes of it, you don't have the jitters of it. This is clean internal energy. For people who are dealing with issues with focus and concentration, memory, clarity of thinking, etc., the focus patch deals with the cognitive issues of the brain, streamlines the brainwave activity, enhance focus and concentration. The joy patch for people who are in low moods, feeling depressed. And this will harmonize your brainwave activity to bring you into a place where a more optimistic mood, more enhanced positivity. It supports that emotional wellness. This joy patch is really exceptional in other ways. The Kick It, this is a phenomenal patch because it taps in to the centers of the brain where habits are emotionally encoded. It regulates and streamlines the brainwave activities to where overcoming some of these habits become so much easier to do. And it's just amazing to me that such a technology exists that's so simple, but yet so profoundly powerful, and it's working hand in glove with what exists within our bodies. You want healthy, vibrant complexion, you want healthy skin, you want more youthful looking skin, you use the Lumi patch, it gives that luminescent glow. You could look at my skin and see my skin is improving since I've been using it. It works really well. You want to get off some of those extra pounds, you can't get enough of the activity in that you would like. This will burn 25% more calories at rest. It enhances the energy utilization of your body. It supports metabolic function. And for us men, when we get up into these senior years and you find that your masculine function is waning, you want to reclaim that virility and you want to have more performance there, the Rocket Patch will do that for you. So you see, a brain in sync is a body in balance. This is a completely different approach. When the brain's rhythms flow harmoniously, the body systems resonate in accord. That innate healing begins to flow. We don't have to know how to heal the body. We have to know how to remove the resistance. And there's nothing that removes the resistance so that the flow becomes free. There's nothing that exists on the planet right now besides Super Patch. And so when you synchronize the brainwave activity and there are ways you can combine the patches and get broader and deeper levels of synchronization of your brain waves to get even greater impact of things in your body. Absolutely, it's mind-blowing how these things work. They're very simple to use. You just peel, stick on, that's it. You just live and feel better. Each patch lasts 24 hours. And you just need to know that Super Patch really does invest a lot into their research and their development. It undergoes intensive research, peer-reviewed studies, and they have real-world testing that's done by their medical advisory board. These people work with the research and development team to make sure that they're meeting real-world applications, that they're all scientifically, that they're compliant, that they meet all the legal standards and so, you know, as a professional in the field, I want to know that what I'm suggesting and offering to people, I want to know that it does meet safe and legal standards of everything, and that it has the research and the development behind it. The clinical studies and all the neuroscience references, it's all available in the public domain on what Super Patch is doing. They're above board with everything. I want to invite you to get aligned in your life, not just for physical well-being, because Super Patch goes beyond that. When we wear Super Patches over an extended period of time, it becomes part of our lifestyle, part of our accessories. We're not just helping to streamline and organize brainwave activity and feel better in our bodies, but over time, the brain begins to rewire itself. It's called neuroplasticity. The brain begins to rewire itself to this new balance that's running through. And over time, people are experiencing shifts on the inside, shifts with alignment. People are saying, more clarity in my thinking, They may not even have been using the focus, but just by in your brain waves becoming more harmonious, there's more coherent and orderly functioning of the brain and the mind. People are saying, I don't get upset and perturbed like I used to. The traffic doesn't annoy me. That person's attitude doesn't really worry me. I'm just feeling, people are saying that, normally when I have to meet these deadlines, I get so anxious. I can't understand why I'm not even getting anxious anymore. And it's, see, we're so not used to a brain and a mind that's more coherent and more orderly in its function. The result is the innate flow of creative order just flows freer and the body starts to repair itself. See, this is enhanced well-being. It's tailored for you, but it's tailored by you. Your body, your own innate intelligence is determining what has to be done and how it has to be done. This is, you don't get any better than this. We have a Facebook page. You can visit it, Patch and Go. Thousands of testimonies of people all over the world that's experiencing life-changing results. And so finally, we get to this ripe old age. You're finally old enough to do anything you want, but you're too tired to actually do it. That's where we can end up. For some of us, we say age doesn't matter. Well, I know your age may not bother you. It's just the side effects of aging. Growing old is like climbing a mountain. The higher you get, the more strength you need, but the more breathtaking the view can be. So don't let aging get you down, folks. It's too hard to get back up. That's why we all need Super Patch. And so I'm going to say that's it for me. I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to share this with you. What I've shared with you is, in my opinion, very critical and groundbreaking information of why this global pandemic of disease is happening. It gets to the core. It's not mopping the floor anymore. It's fixing the pipe. But fixing the pipe has become a difficult thing in this very time-starved, high-stressed, busy, high-tech world. But we need to understand that the real solution is on the inside, that we don't have to live stressed when we harness our inner well-being. That is the work that we have to cultivate. But what makes it easy is if we can synchronize our brainwave activity and bring our state of being into our bodies into more balance, and it starts to work better, our minds begin to function better. Our body begins as one loop that keeps feeding itself. Now we can begin to nurture our thought life. We can now begin to cultivate our emotional responses. We can begin to now shift our paradigms of thinking. And so that we can now migrate from the outer to the inner and have a better quality of life. All supported by the Super Patch, making the journey, forming a bridge that we can now cross over to the other side more effectively, more fluently, more enjoyably. And so it was my pleasure to bring this to you. One of the ways that Super Patch is taking where Jay Dhaliwal, he wants to build something generational that will change the world. How he's doing it is that he's chosen a way to do it that will reach people personally through referrals. And so while it may not be for everybody, Super Patch is expanding their business. The company is just over 2 years old, but they have a business expansion program where they offer individuals who might be interested, not just to be a consumer of, but to become an owner of their own globally scalable business. So if there's anyone that has an interest in that, we talk about that and what the company offers on Monday evening. There's a Zoom link you can request, you can get for that if you have an interest in hearing what that is about. It's very meaningful. It's an economic model that's also different to what exists out there. If you have an interest in that, or you have any concerns about the security of your financial future, you want to go beyond exchanging time for money, what Super Patch offers in their business expansion and their economic model, I can tell you, as an investor, as a business person, it is really second to none. If you're interested in that, request the link and we'll talk about that on Monday evening at 6 o'clock. Monday evening, 6 o'clock, we talk a little bit about that. And we also make it interactive where you can ask any questions about what you might have heard tonight regarding the health aspect of it or the technology itself. And so I want to thank everyone for taking the time for coming on and being here tonight. I hope that you would have heard something that will excite you, something that was going to cause you to think deeper, to re-examine your life, look at how you're handling your life, how you respond to life, your whole thought life. Look at your inner well-being, understand that, and really, we are extraordinary creatures. We are divinely designed. We're not even meant to be sick, but we are conditioned in a way, but we can change it. And now we have a tool that can help us to harness our well-being physically and mentally without any interaction. Here's the beauty of it. The beauty of it is that it's nothing external to stimulate. It is what is already the encoded design. It just taps into that, removes what's interrupting and interfering that so that everything works smoothly. It's just absolutely incredible. So I really enjoy sharing this information because it has been life-changing for me. It has been life-changing. People I've shared this with, I mean, the impact it's had on people's lives. And I'll just share this quickly as we close is that, last year, and I mentioned this on one of the previous calls, I had um, an ultrasound done on my thyroid last year, and the doctor decided I just have my annual monitoring checks, and the thyroid panel in the blood work was showing abnormal. So she palpated and she said, there's a little something here. And as she began to feel it, I didn't know anything was there, but as she pressed it, it started to make me cough because I could feel this like a little marble under here that she's rubbing her thumb over. She said, "Do you feel that?" I said, "Yes." And she said, "You need to go and do an ultrasound." And it was a 9 millimeter growth on my thyroid that I did not know was there. Now, could my body fix that? Absolutely, it could fix that. But she said, "I think you should go and do a biopsy to make sure there's no abnormal cells in that. And let's do this and let's do another check and monitor this." I said, "I'll hold on for that." And she made me promise. She said, "If in 3 months you come back and it has grown, we need to do a biopsy." I said, "Okay." I did not go back in these 3 months. I went back a few weeks ago and had it done, had the blood test done, had the ultrasound done. And she said, "The blood work is fine and there's no growth. The growth is gone." And I said to her, I said, what do you think that is?" She said, "I don't know." She said, she just shrugged her shoulders and said, "Sometimes these things happen. Sometimes they appear, sometimes they disappear, and we really can't say why or what it was." Well, I'm telling you, the reason why I held off, and I had no interest in doing no biopsy, and there's no way I was going to do anything like that, because I have faith in the understanding of how my body works. And so, in fact, it was 1 month after being told that I actually started using super patches. Now, and in this year, I got on, I checked, it probably might have worked out to be maybe 6, 7 months I was using these super patches, and that's gone. Now, I firmly believe that super patches resulted in removing that. The body just repaired itself. Why? Because that's what it does. It happens with people that have tumors in their brains, people that have tumors anywhere in their body. You see, you understand why I say it's a paradigm shift? Because for us to think that if we get diagnosed with something tomorrow, we will not think our bodies can get rid of this. I just need to do the inner work, or I just need to help the body to release its potential. And if we understand how to do that, but we would think external because that's how we've been conditioned to think. We think that health is about the body. Health is not just about our body, health is about you. It's about me, it's about our whole life. And we are learning how to put that together. It's a beautiful journey. It's a beautiful life when we begin to bring everything in harmony and alignment. So folks, thank you very much for taking your time and spending this time together with me and giving me the opportunity to share this with you. And I hope that maybe some of you will choose to join us on Monday if you have an interest in that. So may God bless all of you. Thank you very much and have a great evening and a wonderful weekend.